Mouldings, decorative pieces that mask the transition between a wall and ceiling or a floor and wall, first appeared thousands of years ago in classic Greek architecture. Now, moldings are manufactured by specialists who can make just about any design of molding you can think of. Today on Made to Renovate, we visit the Royal Wood Shop, suppliers of quality moldings for over 30 years. Whether you want a finishing touch that's simple and tasteful or grand and elegant, the Royal Wood Shop will find what's right for you.
Moldings come in all shapes and sizes. This is probably the simplest form of molding. It's called a quarter round.
Yeah, we use those on floors. But why not just use a square piece of wood?
A square piece would work. With moldings, it's all about adding that extra decorative touch that can make any room look like $1,000,000. From the simplest to the detailed, moldings are the final piece that completes a room.
Very true.
Aurora, Ontario has been home to the Royal Wood Shop since it first opened its doors back in 1982. Since then, they've supplied thousands of different shapes and sizes and millions of feet of molding in almost any design you can think of. So it's no surprise that the folks at the Royal Wood Shop are considered experts in their field of architectural trim and moldings.
We were founded in 1982, so over 30 years ago. Family owned and operated, and we cater to an upscale renovation market. And we provide quality products to contractors, renovators, custom home builders, and handy do-it-yourselfers alike. So you can walk right into the showroom, you can get expert advice from our friendly staff, and you can handpick your own lumber if you want. We've got amazing, massive selection in 7 different species and well over 1,000 different profiles here in stock, ready to ship.
Keeping up with the latest molding styles is a challenge, and one that not every manufacturer is up to, which is how the Royal Wood Shop got its start.
The mill was manufacturing moldings every day, and they just weren't set up to deal with people walking in and asking for products. So the Royal Wood Shop was founded, and it's been a family-owned and operated business ever since. We've been supplying renovators and contractors with the moldings and the lumber that they need, as well as other things as in terms of custom profiles, curved pieces, and a lot of doors as well.
With so many designs, making the right choice at first can seem intimidating. So the folks at the Royal Wood Shop actually keep library samples of their many different designs.
Moldings are always changing. Moldings are fashion, despite what people might think. A lot of the shapes that you see in architecture have been around for hundreds or even thousands of years. And you see that recurring and recurring again in moldings. But moldings are fashion. Different shapes, different styles do come in and out. So we're always making sure here to adapt our product line to match what the customers are wanting.
Before we get into how moldings are made, let's talk a little bit about the basics.
Great idea. Why don't we start with the crown molding?
Well, crown molding is used to hide the transition between walls and ceilings.
All right, how about the casing?
Casing is used to hide the seams between doors and windows and where the walls are. Casing is what gives a door and window that nice finished appearance.
Okay, and last one. How about baseboards?
Baseboard is used to cover the transition between floors and walls. It also helps to hide any imperfections in the floor.
I get it. So like if the floor doesn't quite meet the wall?
Exactly.
Okay, now that we know the basics, let's see what other tricks we can learn when it comes to moldings.
Crown molding is one of those big bang for your buck items that you can really control the scope of the job, because you don't have to do crown molding everywhere. You can do it in 1 room, 2 rooms, everywhere if you want. You can control how much goes where. The other thing that's nice about crown molding is it actually doesn't touch any other trim in the house, so it's completely independent. It's just 4 walls, you miter around the top, and you get a great look, and you can do it for a reasonably low cost, especially if you install it yourself. Common question I get is how big of a crown molding to do in your house. You can get away with a 7-inch crown with an 8-foot ceiling. Most people don't go that big, but you can. I have seen it done. It actually looks nice. Most people stick to either a 4 1/4 size, roughly, or better yet, a 5 1/4 size. for an 8-foot ceiling. If you have higher than an 8-foot ceiling, I would say you'd want to start here and go up. So 9 and 10-foot ceilings, I would say this would be your minimum size that you would want to go. So there's some other ways that you can upgrade your trim and molding in your house that are relatively simple. You look here, you can see some very common types of molding, casing and baseboard with a common shoe mold, which is a quarter round. Now often people will come in and they will want to upgrade their baseboard because they think it's, you know, they want something bigger. Maybe they put in new hardwood flooring or whatever their situation is. Thing is, when that happens, unlike crown molding, casing and door trim are connected. So you can see here this baseboard that's upgraded is now thicker than the casing. So you have two options. Now you can either upgrade your casing to a thicker casing, like that, or you can add a back band to your casing to sort of minimize the scope of the job and cut down costs. And that allows for the baseboard to connect nicely into the casing. And the same applies for this more common builder style now as well. You would add a larger back band, and it makes a big difference. Adds a lot of width and a lot of thickness as well. Some people say, you know what, I want to upgrade the baseboard, but I don't like the casing, let's upgrade the whole thing, that's fine. Then you can do a completely new style. And we're finding that more and more people are actually completely switching it up from this upgraded, more of a colonial type look, to more of a modern, I guess you can say, streamlined, simpler type look, like that. And this would be wrapping around all of their doors and windows, and then this is their baseboard here.
Do you think you can install molding?
Not only can I install it, but I'm also going to show you how easy it is to install.
Really?
Yep, one molding demo coming up. Just let me grab a couple of things.
Okay.
Coming up on Made to Renovate, customers have access to over 10,000 unique knives, and it's a collection that keeps on growing.
We're going to install a piece of chair rail. Not everybody does chair rail because it's a little more traditional, but in this case we're going to do it. The most important thing you need to do before you start is to get a level line across. If you look closer, you'll see there's a line going all the way across from one end to the other. You need a level. Whether it be a laser level or a handheld level, you need a level. Don't always measure from the floor up because sometimes the floors aren't even and therefore your chair rail won't be even. Do your level line. If you don't have a hand nailer, you don't have nails, you can always use an adhesive. So put small dabs on the chair rail. Not too much, because if you put too much on and you squeeze it into your wall, you'll have bleeding out on either side and you don't want that. Find your line, find your starting point, push in, even pressure the whole time. Hold for anywhere from 7 to 15 seconds depending on the product specifications and directions. And then let go. Voila, chair rail. Now we're going to install wainscoting. I have my line again, and not only do I have my line, but I also have my sections where my wainscoting is going to stop and start. I've pre-glued these pieces already, and we're going to start to install line on line, end on end. Again, pressing, keeping it level. I cut these pieces earlier on a 45-degree angle. At this point, we're going to grab our level, put it right up against the corner here, make sure your bubble's right between the two lines, and then place your side piece in. Nice and tight, nice and level. Sometimes your corners don't always meet. Don't worry about this. This is what we have caulking and filler for. We can fill that in, you won't even be able to tell the difference, and after it's painted, it's going to look like $1,000,000. Now you'll notice you put a little too much glue on the top here. Again, not a big deal. If you have a scraper, you can simply come along and just pull it away. Now, if you don't have a nail gun, and sometimes the glue doesn't set up as quickly as you'd like, simply just grab some painter's tape. Cut about 3 or 4 4-inch pieces, put it in the top, the middle, and the bottom to hold it in. If it's painter's tape, you don't have to worry about your walls. It won't rip your paint away. Now on to baseboard. With the baseboard, as it's a bigger piece of material, you want to put a little more glue. So be a little more liberal this time. If you're a little gappy at the bottom between where your floor is and where your baseboard ends, that's all right. That's what the quarter round is for. All right, we're fully covered. Again, find your line. Press evenly, press firmly. Hold 15 to 20 seconds. And there you go, that's the baseboard. It's just that easy to do all of this install. Keep in mind, you still have to do your filling, your caulking, and your painting, and then you'll be completely done, and your house will look like $1,000,000.
The process of manufacturing moldings has changed dramatically over the years. Modern machinery has replaced extremely labor-intensive methods of the past. Today, with the use of computer-aided drawing and manufacturing, moldings are made again and again with zero variations between runs. To make the moldings, they start with two things: wood and very sharp blades to carve it into the shapes required. In the business, they call them the knives.
It's basically steel in the shape of the molding that we're going to make for a customer. So for example, a customer might have a molding that they have in their house and they can't find it anywhere, or they just need a bunch made, and we will draw the molding on AutoCAD and we'll cut out a piece of plastic in the reverse shape of the molding. And then from this plastic template, we're actually able to cut steel knives. And then these steel knives get put into the machine. And the machine spins around and cuts the shape into the wood. So we've got over 10,000 knives here, and we keep all of our knives. We've got 30 years of knives stored and cataloged online.
Before being used, the knives are sharpened to make sure they produce the smoothest moldings possible. They're made of steel or carbide tip steel depending on the job. The different metals have different properties. The steel knives are less expensive to manufacture but need more frequent sharpening, whereas the carbide tip steel is more expensive but lasts longer between sharpening. And stopping the machines to take the blades off for resharpening costs time and money.
Before they get mounted in the machines, they're placed on this carousel and they decide whether they're going to use a high-speed steel or a carbide tip steel. Typically harder woods will need a harder steel. If you use a harder steel like a carbide, you don't need to sharpen them as often. So you might be able to run a few thousand feet out of maple without having to detool the machine and retool it.
Now that the knives are sharp and ready for the job, the woodworkers at the manufacturing plant can focus on the second part of the equation, the wood. And all of it arrives kiln dried.
If you mold something out of wood that's just been cut down, as the wood dries, it's going to kind of crack and warp and twist, right? So you want to get the wood to warp, crack, twist, do whatever it wants to do before you turn it into any kind of shape. So ideally, when you put it in your house, it doesn't shrink or move around on you at all. So the first thing we do is we inspect the lumber to make sure that it is dry, down to a 6 to 8% moisture, and then we have to sort it to width, and then we slice it to standard widths so we can turn it into the moldings and the dimensional lumber that the customers want.
Before the wood left the mill, as well as being kiln dried, it was inspected for knots and other imperfections. And, even more importantly, for pieces of metal. Metal could wreak havoc with the machines during cutting and destroy the knives.
It's all been scanned with metal detectors. So, for example, let's just say the tree may have sucked up a horseshoe, or someone may have thrown a nail into the tree at one point in time, or there could be a shotgun shell or a rifle bullet inside the tree. That amount of metal will do a lot of damage to the machines.
Nails, horseshoes, and bullets. Sounds like this wood has a pretty interesting story to tell.
Now you have to remember, we could be dealing with a really old tree. A tree that's 100 years old, so who knows what happened 50 or even 60 years ago.
You're right. And once the wood is chosen, vetted, and inspected, the real work can start. And it starts with a really, really big saw.
Coming up on Made to Renovate, big pieces of wood become beautiful moldings with a little help from some German technology.
I'll admit it, I somehow thought wood moldings were just kind of squeezed out of a machine.
I know what you mean. Who knew there were so many steps? From drying and inspecting the wood to making the knives.
And we haven't even started cutting the wood yet.
At the manufacturing plant, all the wood arrives from the mill in random widths. So the first stop is the rip saw, a machine that slices the wood into specific widths. And it does it very efficiently.
This machine here will take the maximum efficient piece of wood and say, okay, well, if this piece of wood, for example, might be 12 inches wide, I get to slice it down the center into a 6-inch board and 2 3-inch boards. Versus if it's an 8-inch wide board, they might say, okay, well, I can get 2 4-inch boards out of this and use it for something else. It uses lasers to sort, and then it sends it through the saw, and it sorts it at the other end. This all used to be done here manually using measuring sticks and sorted beforehand, but this machine allows it to be done not only faster, but slightly more efficient as well.
Once it has been cut down to the proper size, it's time to move on to the next step, where the wood really starts to become molding.
So behind me is where all the magic happens. This is where all the moldings are made. We've got 6 German molders, full-time making moldings and turning a lot of the moldings into the Royal Woodshop stock product line. And they can make all different size moldings. You can see this massive crown mold right here. So they can run things up to 9 inches in width and as small as 1/4 inch by 1/2 inch and any shape in between. And they can pump out thousands of feet here every day.
Of course, not every piece of molding can be cut by the thousands of board feet. Some of them are specialty items that need to be cut with a special touch.
When you're making moldings, you're always going to run into situations where you have elliptical windows or arched windows, and you're going to need to make trim that matches the rest of the house in the same shape to match the window, and that's where curved moldings comes in. This machine here has the ability to make curved moldings.
Now that the manufacturing is finished, the moldings are ready for the final step, installation. With so many varieties of moldings, both stock and custom, the Royal Wood Shop gives its customers the freedom to let their imaginations run wild.
Here we have a paneled wall application on a curved wall where we've used a combination of poplar, flex mold, and MDF to give a very elegant paneled effect. You can see at the bottom here we've used a flexible molding to take the curve, and then we've got a mitered in inset decorative panel molding inside the sunken panel application. So it's just something a little bit more unique, a little bit more involved that you can do with moldings, and you can pick and choose wherever you want to do it, whether you do it on a wall, a curved wall, a flat wall, or even a ceiling. What we have here is a paneled ceiling now, and we built out the ceiling with 2x4 poplar, so it comes down 1.5 inches, which has allowed us to miter in a 1-inch cove mold inside the panel to set it off for an inset decorative molding, if you will. We've also got a crown molding wrapping around the top to finish it off. We've also paneled out the walls, and instead of doing a sunken panel application, we have done an applied paneling. You just glue molding right on the wall and send some nails into it to hold it until the glue sets, miter the corners, and you can paint it the same color as the wall, and it really adds a lot of relief to the walls. So this archway is made of different pieces, where it's basically a plywood box built around the wall to make, basically to make it look like columns, if you will, and it's hollow inside. And then we've added poplar dimensional moldings on the sides to build it out, and then again, a sunken panel application wrapping around inside all the squares, and it really adds like a sort of a grand archway, if you will, leading into a separate room. And then you can see up here, I've mitered crown molding around the top, and I've mitered baseboard around the bottom. So when you sort of step back and take a look at the whole thing, it really adds a wow factor.
Wow, that was amazing.
You know, a lot of the things we've shown you here can be done on your own as a retrofit.
Really? Even you?
Sure.
Coming up on Made to Renovate, what is the #1 thing you can do to improve the finished look of your home? Find out next.
According to the experts at Royal Woodshop, the #1 thing you can do to improve the look of your home is crown molding. Maybe only 1 or 2 rooms, but the great thing about crown molding is it doesn't have to match any of the other trim in your home. Just choose the one you like and go crazy.
As for the future of moldings, bigger seems better these days.
We're bringing in a lot of different product lines and different species to match different trends. People are liking bigger, more upgraded moldings, but more simple designs. So we accommodate our customers in that way and alter our stocking lines. And we've even brought in new lines of primed moldings, for example. Right now, people have been painting their moldings, and they've been painting their moldings for years, and everybody wants stuff primed. So we're starting to prime our moldings, and they're selling. It's working out quite well.
There's almost no limit to what you can do with your moldings.
Old designs come back, new designs take over, and the folks at Royal Woodshop will make sure that you get the style and type you need.